Hi, I'm Julia Pyke and I'm the Financing Director for Sizewell C. That's a new nuclear project on the east coast of England in Suffolk. And I'm here to talk to you today about how we hope to do the power of good for Britain, how we hope to provide net zero electricity and hydrogen, and how we're exploring direct air capture, and how we're making some innovations in the way that we're building Hinkley Point C, which we want to bring forward into the Sizewell project. So where are we with Sizewell C? So Sizewell C, as with any big infrastructure project, needs its development consent order, which we submitted this year, and we are expecting the examination phase to start quite shortly, and we are hoping to have a planning decision by the end of next year. And we have applied for our nuclear site licence and, of course, all our environmental consents. And the really critical thing about Sizewell C is that it's a copy of Hinkley Point C. So unlike the whole history of UK nuclear power station builds, we're going to build the exact same design above ground in Suffolk as we're building in Somerset. And when we do that, we save a lot of money on design, and we save a lot of money on contractors learning to work on a nuclear site, and we save a lot of money in contractors qualifying to provide equipment into the UK nuclear regime. And as we recover from COVID, it's really important for everybody to focus on jobs. Sizewell C can offer fantastic numbers of really well-paid, high-quality jobs, and not just jobs, careers. You know, some of our team started as 16-year-old apprentices, and now they're doing jobs like running Hinkley Point C. So Stuart started as an apprentice, now he's the MD of Hinkley. Nigel, who is the delivery director, and lots of others in our team have started at 16 and then they've gone all the way through. And I think that the ability of the nuclear industry to act as a real engine for social mobility is something which we should talk about a lot more. So where is Hinkley? So Hinkley is going very well. It's meeting all of its key construction milestones. And because it's got 2 units, we can see the benefit of fleet build in action. So we can see on this slide the productivity gains between Unit 1 and Unit 2. And what we're hoping is to take those productivity gains for Unit 2, and they will be the start of the first Sizewell unit. So we'll help costs really come down for consumers. So the jobs that Sizewell will create are actually all over the UK. Obviously, there'll be a lot of jobs on site. But if you look at this map, you can see that the real hotspots where we also provide jobs in Wales, in the north of England, in the industrial heartlands, where, as we all know, as we move to a net zero economy, we need jobs in the industries which are going to go into decline as we stop burning carbon, creating carbon through combustion, and we need them replacing with jobs in the net zero industries. And Sizewell C will actually support a fantastic number of jobs on site and off site. And we're also planning to create 1,500 apprenticeships. So that's 500 more than for Hinkley. Because we're confident in what we're doing, we think we can support that greater number of apprentices and help really skill up young people who are having such a difficult time during this pandemic. So, to build Hinkley, which is the first nuclear power station in a generation in the UK, we've had to invest a lot in skills. You can see here on the slide some of the investments that we've made, and those skills are going to be really useful as we go forward with Sizewell. We will start off with a better skilled workforce, and we will carry on developing skills, and we have new plans, like, for example, we hope to open a new welding centre of excellence in the east of England. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see some of the debate. Like any mega project, there are people who would prefer it weren't built, and that, of course, is entirely right and proper. We live in a democracy, and it's a good thing that people can express their views. Equally, there are an awful lot of people who would very much appreciate the introduction of jobs into the East of England region. People think of the East of England as wealthy, but actually Suffolk has some of the areas with some of the highest social deprivation in the UK, and there are places which really need levelling up just as much as any of the areas which are more generally talked about in the north. And you can also see that we've opened our UK EPR Engineering Centre in Bristol, really bringing the engineering for the EPR into the UK and providing a real base of skilled engineering going forward. So we formed a Sizewell C consortium representing around about 150 UK companies, and they represent careers for thousands and thousands of people. And what we want to do is to stop the idea that something like a mega project is really just all about the developer. It's actually almost all about the supply chain, and the developer is a thin layer on top. So we've got some fantastic support from our suppliers and also from the trade unions, and we're working together to develop Sizewell to be the best it can be, both for people who work in it and for UK consumers. So we need to deliver on the nuclear sector deal. The nuclear sector deal is to have on gender diversity, it's to have 40% women in the nuclear industry by 2030. And we also are very keen to promote diversity of all sorts, because a more diverse way of thinking is going to produce a better project. And when you've got a project like Sizewell C, which is going to actually touch a lot of people in the UK because it's providing electricity at a national scale, it's really important to reflect the society that we're aiming to serve. And it's also very important to us that we help deliver the nuclear sector deal target on cost reduction. You know, we're very acutely aware that as we come out of the pandemic and people's incomes are squeezed, the last thing people are going to want to see is really major rises in their electricity bills. And so the good news for nuclear is that it actually brings down the cost of electricity bills. People tend to be quite focused on the unit cost of generation, but of course your electricity bill is made up of the whole cost of having electricity brought to your home or your place of work 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. And adding nuclear to the system, which is of course not weather dependent, will actually bring down the cost of your bills. So turning to construction, and I myself am not a construction engineer, so there are many people much better placed to talk about this than me. But in Hinkley Point C, there have been some industry leading innovations. So there's been a lot of modularisation, a lot of use of digital, so that we really bring the construction of nuclear forward so that it can be leading in the construction sector, as well as showing the way for UK new nuclear. I also wanted to talk a bit about what can you do with nuclear. In the UK, we've always used nuclear to produce grid scale electricity, but that only uses round about a third of the heat which the nuclear produces. Is actually a heat machine. And we are intending with Sizewell C to actually take out the spare heat and to use it to assist processes like electrolysing for hydrogen, where with the assistance of heat, we think it's going to be around 10% more efficient than with electricity alone. We're looking very hard at direct air capture, which again is made more efficient if you've got a big source of heat, so that there can be some room for those technologies which will find it very, very difficult to fully remove their CO2, and so that the Sizewell C itself can be carbon negative. And we're very interested in how the concept of Sizewell C producing a large amount of clean electricity and an awful lot of clean heat can align with the government's ideas about free ports. How can we help make UK manufacturing in free ports areas more competitive, even more competitive, by providing clean heat and power? And I should also say about hydrogen that we are looking at making the construction of Sizewell C a demonstration clean construction site. We're going to look at reducing our use of diesel and introducing vehicles and plant powered by hydrogen, and of course electric vehicles and plant, and seeing how far we can get in cleaning the construction site to the maximum extent possible, while of course maintaining our schedule and costs. So the last thing I'd like to mention is a project with the town which is nearest to Sizewell C, which is a town called Leiston. When we're talking about net zero, we often talk about an awful lot of technologies, and that's right. But we need also to talk about social acceptability. How far is the population willing to go in changing the way that we live today to live in a way which is more compatible with our journey to net zero? So we set up a project with the town council and with the county council in Leiston, which is a bit like Dragon's Den. We, with our partners, you can see there on the slide, including some of our leading engineering companies, are working out a route map to net zero. And then we're operating the project a bit like Dragon's Den. We come forward with ideas, and then the community act as the dragons and let us know which of those ideas they think are going to be popular to implement into Leiston. And what this should give us is actually a blueprint, and we'll make this open source for other similar communities. So post-industrial towns, it's in a rural area, it's about 5,000 people. It should give a blueprint for how can you get a town to net zero in a way which has the full buy-in of its community. Then the last thing I'd like to talk about is our further ambition for new nuclear. We would very much like to build a third twin UK EPR, and we'd like to build that at Moorside in Cumbria, and we would like it to be conceived of from the start as powering clean industry. So from the start, instead of thinking of it as just providing electricity, which is of course a more than useful thing to do, we'd like to think about it as being the centre of a clean energy park. That's something which the community around Cumbria is actually calling for, and if we can help fulfil their vision, then that will be a great thing for the UK and a great thing for the construction industry here in Britain.